Alexa, start. Alexa, turn up. Alexa, turn it up.
What goes on? Rolling stones in the rap game, not bragging. Look bigger than Jagger, not sagging. Brother backwards, I'ma leave it at that. That ain't got nothing to do with rap. Shot the facts, expose those cats who pose as heroes, take advantage of blacks. The government's gangsters, so cut the crap. A war going on, so where y'all at? Fight for power, cause great responsibility. F the police.
Who stopped you from killing me?
His ass is fiascos and loot by PE. If it's eyes, then we believe on TV. Spreading rich and bitches as we think about snitches. Watch the masses move as the masses switches. System distant, but barely missed her. My soul is just to save my brothers and sisters. Get up.
Just like that. Just like that. Just like that. Yeah, we're doing a Public Enemy joint right now. Yeah. Feel a groove. We worked our tails off this week. What's the case in the kingdom? Don't know. Same oppression as usual. Good evening. I'm Icy Bailey, and this is Conversations with Alexa. Stop. All right. I love this one. Alexa, start again.
Yo, Chuck, what's the move, man?
Alexa, stop. Cool. All right. Like I said, I'm Icy Bailey. This week we're doing Hoodies Up. I just want to say congratulations. Happy International Women's Day. You know, this is a good day for us to all focus on the lives of women, what's happening with them, you know, women and girls, and focus on them and how we can make their lives better, how we can stop some of the shit that we're doing to make their lives a total mess. Right? We're going to focus on that this week. And so today, if you can, meditate in your own space, the things that you can do in order to make the lives of women and girls a lot better, right? Because we've blown this. I mean, you know, every day should be International Women's Day. Every day should be Universal Women's Day. You know, the fact that women have to ascertain that there's a day special for them is a testament to how bad we've actually completely butchered the lives of women. Right, so just a quick second to think about that. International Women's Day. Celebration, get excited, think about some of the favorite women in your life, some of the favorite, the most famous women in history, some of the thought leaders, some of the innovators, some of the inventors, whatever they decided to be, that's what they are. And if you can focus and meditate on that. This week we're going to talk a little bit about just some of the stuff that's in the news. Some of the stuff you notice. I'm not going to talk about R. Kelly. We know he's a walking trash fire. We're not going to talk about MJ. He's a walking trash fire. We're not going to talk about Jussie Smollett, who had some issues, made a mistake, whatever. We're not going to talk about any of those things because that takes the throttle. That takes the pressure off the white mass power culture, who really are the cause of a lot of those things in the first place, right? We're going to focus on some of the things that we're seeing that they look like they're small, they look like they're little, but they're not, right? So our focus this week is going to be on some of the rulings that look like they're a small deal, but they're a big thing. In Alabama, who would have thought there's going to be some racist activity in Alabama, right? The 11th Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that it's legal to refuse people work because they have dreadlocks. I don't even like the term. Let's just say locks. Hashtag not my locks. So what had happened is there was this woman named Chastity Jones that applied for a job at a place called Catastrophe Management Solutions of Mobile, Alabama, right? Applied for a job, good faith, she was qualified. So what happened is they hired her. And I guess the woman in HR, or the person in HR was a woman, white woman, said to her, well, you know, we look forward to having you here, but your dreadlocks they're Sophia, your dreadlocks, your sister locks, as you like to remind me. Your International Day of the Women, so let's not call them locks, let's call them sister locks today, right? So your sister locks. Say sister locks for me.
Just the locks.
All right. So your sister locks, with them come a whole bunch of mess. You know how they get out of control. Like she has sister locks and she knows anything about it, right? And they're always attacking. Fatima says it right on point. Fatima, sister, boss, the boss. So I better make sure that my P's and Q's are in order. My boss is watching right now, Fatima. Yeah, so they're always attacking locks. So it's interesting that she started talking about how they're a mess, not the fact that long hair, white people's hair can be a mess, black people's hair can be a mess too. But she made a subjective analysis that her hair would be a mess. And I'm not sure, you know, and again, we're gonna unpack this, we're gonna break it down a little bit. What made her think that business, or she as an HR person, could actually comment on a black woman's hair or a black person's hair. Right? Clearly, she was professional enough to get the job in the interview. So they saw her, they saw that she looked. They didn't bring it up there, but they brought it up after. So what would make them think that they could say to a person, your appearance, the way you are, part of your body is unacceptable, right? What's the mindset behind that thinking? I suggest it's this idea that black people's spaces, including their own bodies, aren't their own. Whether this is part of white supremacy and racism, it is, or an additional part of patriarchy as well, where men have been telling women for thousands of years that their bodies aren't their own. But nonetheless, this was a white woman that said it to her. So in her mind, she believed that she was entitled to tell another human being how their body should look. Now, we're not talking about wearing, you know, something that's dirty or unkept. We're talking about the way that someone looks. You might as well say to somebody, I don't like the way your arm looks. Would we say to a disabled person, probably a black disabled person, but would we say to a disabled person, I don't like the way that your face looks or your arm looks, so we're not going to hire you. So why, again, do you feel you're entitled to be able to tell black people how they should look? And Fatima wrote here in the comments, because we're expected to adhere to European standards of beauty. And that's true. So they've got, in their mind, there's a sense of entitlement to black spaces, right? There's this bias in their mind that black people don't look like them, or don't look good, or don't look whatever the model is. But this is more about power. This is about entitlement to black spaces. This is about entitlement to all spaces. This is about entitlement to look at an individual, to look at a piece of land, to look at someone's body, to look at everything that makes them them, and think that you can assert your privilege and your power on these people. And you know, let's say this is distorted thinking. It is. You would figure one of the highest courts in North America would come to a conclusion of fairness that you can't tell people based on their cultural norms, based on their own personal culture, how to look, right? You know, it would have been interesting if the argument was, here's me do my Jamaican accent. No, man, Rasta not cut his hair. Ja, that's this golden locks of Christ and all that thing now, you know. Was that good, Sophia? If someone actually made the argument that it was their religion to have their hair like that, or would only white people be able to make that argument. So we have this business reaffirming this idea that black people's bodies aren't their own. Black people's bodies aren't their own. Now, Fatima writes again, they tried to get her to take her hair out when I was employed in a correctional facility, and as soon as I told them it was my spiritual covering, they had to leave me alone. Checkmate. Cool. So we have to do what we need to do sometimes in order to survive. Joanna Coquette writes, you should use a lip liner to line your lips. Whenever I use lipstick, makes my afro lips stand out. The same BS was forced me to save small, occupy left space. So again, this idea that you would actually come up to a human being, and quite often, you know what, it's really interesting, is they come up to black women because they view them as, I guess, vulnerable or needing to have controls over them, to be unruly. That of all people, the people that they should be able to have power over the most are black women's lives. And this is behavior of continuity for the last 400 years, where black women's lives on International Women's Day aren't their own. We still own you. We can decide, like they're a doll in a possession with their Barbies that they learn, hey Barbie, I'm a Malibu Barbie and I'm gonna make her hair this, and no, I can't have her hair in locks because that's dirty. And you do you have the black Barbie? Okay, make sure her hair's not all kinky and nappy like those black people have them locky things, right? So it's this idea that black women aren't entitled to their own bodies, right? That they're not entitled to their own bodies, which is sad, right? That white people are entitled to. And then it's reaffirmed by one of the highest courts in the land. Fatima writes, it's even crazier that they felt my hair was fake because, of course, it was the only thing we have long hairs for, because it must be fake. So, and that's the other thing, is that they've gotten this idea that everything that we have of beauty isn't real. It's artificial. It's fake. We have no standards on our own, right? Right. And you know, my wife, commonly people are coming up to her at work and saying, your hair looks so pretty. You know, even at times attempting, you know, maybe to reach out and touch it a couple times. Is it real? Is it real? And you know, it's this thing about devaluing everything that is part of everybody else's life, right? Which is quite sad. So we see this. We see that young boys are being asked, and it tends to be young boys or women or people that the white mass power culture, in their power, think that they can come up to and get to change. They tend not to come up to full-grown black men like me and say, you're going to cut your locks. Is that crazy? Crazy. It's almost like they're even scared. In fact, they won't even walk down the same hallway as me, you know, when my hair is down. But that's a perception not based on having more value in who I am, but just a paradigm of fear. You know, there's this idea, what's that Jamaican saying? The devil know who to
Frighten.
Say it again for me really loud.
The devil know who for frighten.
The devil know who for frighten, right? That's what my wife would say. So they look for vulnerable people, or who they think is vulnerable, not recognizing that black women are probably, in general, a lot stronger emotionally than, in mature-wise, than the black men, that we probably won't respond appropriately, right? So what happens now is we talked a little bit about how unfair it is, but what happens to the lives of black people? What happens when this woman, Chastity Jones, she's all excited, she's got a job, you know, she's worked hard in her career, she goes to the interview, she gets hired, and can you imagine, I just want you to think, how she feels when she's told that she doesn't have value, that what she is and what she has and what she's about isn't good enough and she has to change it. Imagine if, and I don't know Chastity Jones, I don't know all the circumstances of her life, But can you imagine if she absolutely, and who doesn't need their jobs, but if she needed her job, she had a sick child at home, or she had a relative that she had to support, and she really had no choice but to cut her hair. And when we look back through slavery, we see for the last 400 years that we've been forced to cut our hair. And in fact, part of the reason why you see a lot of black people with that, tight lineup, crispy lineup, I had it for years, right? If you ever see some of my marriage pictures, right, you'll see a nice crispy lineup, is because we've been taught that our hair is nappy, disgusting, and dirty, and we've been taught that from white culture and pop media. So Joanna writes, my 2019 resolution going forward is to knock teeth out. She's not playing. Sister's not playing. She's going to knock teeth out whenever I get random hands in my afro. Leave my crown alone. I love that. I love how it's just straightforward, knocking teeth out if they touch her hair. Because I guarantee you, if I walked up to some woman in a mall, blonde hair, blue eyes, this warrior here, if I walked up to a woman in a mall and touched her blonde hair, blue eyes with her children there, I'm going to jail or even worse. You know what I mean? Well, we were feared for our life. He reached out and tried to assault this woman, and she had her kids there, and who knows, he could have kidnapped him, and we were frightened for her life, and he had a hoodie on, and he tried to touch, and he looked crazy and uncapped, and he was wild, and he had these weird glasses on, and Ray-Bans, and he was out of control, right? And so when we apply their behavior to us, we see how unfair and just unsightly it is, right? We see the young boys, like I'm still crushed that this young boy was forced to cut off his locks. I'm so crushed. So another sister sent home, you might have seen the video, she was sent home from work. Her hair was beautiful, I mean pristine. We're talking gleaming, shining empress hair, something that you could only imagine to ever aspire to. Absolutely beautiful. And she was sent home. I don't know if that's cultural insecurity on top of that. I don't know if it's for jealousy, which I guess is the same thing. I don't know if it's just straight out, I don't like black people, am I going to cause them pain and anguish? And it's upsetting because when I was a young boy, and I'm going to go back to this again, growing up in children's aid and not having black people around me to protect me, these things were hoisted on me so that I thought I was ugly. I thought I was nasty. I thought my hair was dirty. I cursed my hair, hated it. They used to try to drag a pick through it, and because they couldn't get through it and they couldn't teach me, I sat there for the longest time trying to comb my hair, and I couldn't get it to look the way it should be looking or whatever. And as a result, I loathed myself. I hated and cursed my skin and my hair because a group of people thought that black lives didn't matter. So Joanna writes, also effing edge control. My afro edges don't need no controlling. Let my edges do their thing. Let them do their own curling thing. And that's the thing. So we have to line everything up and make it look all crispy. And where's that coming from? Right? It's coming from the sentiment, wow, that black people need to make changes. Gaston showed up. He was supposed to co-host the show again tonight. I guess he was busy, had to work, hard-working guy. Vivian wrote, I had a woman pet my head. I was cleaning her house and she started petting my head. I did not go back. Good for you, Viv. Oh, and by the way, it's Joanna's birthday today, and their hangout is lit. Good. I hope you got some. Alexa, play Stevie Wonder. I'm trying to think of something. Play Public Enemy instead. Back to Public Enemy. Happy birthday, Joanna. Happy birthday to Joanna on Happy International Women's Day. Alexa, stop. All right. So Jordan writes, happy birthday. And then Joanna writes again about the entitlement. So we see the entitlement is the theme, the ongoing theme that's happening across the board here. Now, let's flip the script here. I was looking through the internet for interesting things that we could talk about. You know, I was trying to find something that we could talk about in terms of racism, white supremacy, and the stuff that's going on. But what happened was I was overwhelmed with, well, what do I pick? And I would go to another thing, and then another thing, and then another thing. And I kept on looking. My goodness, I kept on looking at this stuff. And there's so much stuff. So we've got a private school teacher accused of holding a mock slave auction, right? And this is in Bronxville, wherever that is, right? We've got a cop pulls gun on black man picking up trash in front of his home. We've got an ABC star or executive saying blackface worn by actors and movie stars is a private matter. We've got a Pennsylvania billboard that actually says whites have rights. White power! Whites have rights! Right? We have white women. We have a white woman calling cops on a man because he's gardening while black. He was gardening. We have U.S. white supremacists spread propaganda at a record rate last year. Go figure. Let's park it there for a second. You ever have a conversation with, whether you're a black person or a white person, talking with someone who's just uninformed, and you say that racism is alive and well, and they say, no, what are you talking about? It's not like it was in the 60s or 70s. It's not even like it was in the 90s. What are you seeing? And you tell them that your personal experience has value. And they look at you almost incredulously. Well, what is your empirical data on that? Although you do give them empirical data, and what happens is they just skip to the next subject. Oh yes, well, the source on that. Do you really think the FBI is a good source for crime statistics? Or the Department of Corrections? I think that you should turn to Fox News, and of course they tend to be a lot more unbiased. And have you read Jordan Peterson's work on reading statistics? So they'll go off on this tangent, never addressing the thing. So what we have right here is we know that white supremacists are spreading propaganda at a record-setting rate, right? We know that there's some direct line data that tells us what our experiences have told us for the last 400 years. The beautiful thing about it is that I'll take a black person's experience 9 times out of 10 over any empirical data. In fact, most of the empirical data I've seen confirms what black people have been saying for the last 400 years. And that's a unique dynamic, because you can't take, I'm sorry, the nation of the white mass power culture and take their collective experiences on anything and rely on that as something that's going to be truthful. You just don't. You can't. People could say, well, women's experiences, and well, white women's experiences are one thing and black women's experiences are another thing. So when we look at this collectively, the last 400 years have given us a collective body of knowledge that defies any conventional wisdoms, right? And this is something that you can rest on. So when someone says to us, your hair is unkept, or it's not professional in the workplace, it's not just our own knowledge, but we have this oral tradition and this black connection, right? Black connection, that allows us to almost borrow the collective wisdoms of each other when we know what our hair is. I'm going to be honest with you. I used to take care of my hair before, but the way that I take care of my hair now, Sophie sometimes, because she enjoys doing it, I guess, because she loves me. You do, right? International Women's Day, you don't have to do anything you don't want to do, right? Awesome. She sometimes just helps me with my hair and sits there for 2 or 3 hours a week. I never did that before. I go to barbers for 25 minutes and that was it. So we know collectively to maintain black beauty in this harsh weather that we've been kidnapped and brought to, that we have to do some things to keep our skin not ashy, to keep our hair nice and moist, you know, to keep our beards nice and debonair and all that stuff, right? So this idea that we're unkept is just ridiculous. We know that through our own personal experiences. You won't necessarily go and find some empirical data to prove that our hair is kept, right? Which they're just going to go and ignore anyway once they get it. Karen writes, so much evil. The mayor of my town, who has an effect on the lives of so many black folk, resigned today, not because he was proven to make, because he was proven to make racist jokes. Right? You might have saw that in the paper too as well, making jokes about black people. And you know, my assumption is, you know, that when black people aren't in the room around white people, then they're going to make jokes. And of course, you know, we're going to have the wonderful liberal people, men and women in our group here say, no, of course, not my friends, and not me, and I would never stand for that. But I'm going to guarantee you that every single white person that you know has sat there and did nothing while a joke about a black person was made, or didn't even notice because it's not on their radar, because their privilege is just automatic. Well, it doesn't affect me, so why am I even listening? Right? So we look at that. We have a middle school that faces backlash for asking students to pretend that they're slave owners. Now, here's the thing. Sometimes schools get filled with, and Martin Luther King talked about this in his letter of a Birmingham jail, that he had more of a concern with liberal white people who were involved in the movement. Power. Right. He had more of an issue with them than he did race, like overt white supremacists. Because I could see, yeah, don't call me Mr. Smith, call me Greg. No, we're all friends here. I'm your principal. Don't think of me as your principal, think of me as your friend. And I'm all for the empowerment of black people. In fact, let's do an exercise today. Let's all pretend, so that we know how black people felt. Let's pretend that we're all slave owners. And what would you say to your slaves? See how evil these people are? Pretend you're all slave owners, and you can pretend you're like them, and you can see how, like, who would do that? And then the black kid's sitting in class, and he's just looking at us, wait a second, looking at all the kids around him, white kids around him, saying, these are slave owners, so what am I then? Because I couldn't be a slave owner back in 1820, right? So I must be the slave. So these people are all going to whip me, beat me, rape me, murder me, send me away, sell me, feed me to crocodiles. Like, what's happening here? Right? Like Greg, it's probably not a good idea, eh, bro? So you need to step the fuck back. Whoop, did I say that? You need to step back. So these are some of the things that these schools do because they're not concerned with black lives. They're not concerned with black perspectives or black feelings or black trauma. What they're concerned is the performative value of doing something so that they can sit in the paradigm of good, bad binary, so they can say, well, Greg is a forward-thinking guy. He's not one of those racists. He's a good white person. He's a good person. And that's what this is about. It's about their image and their performance rather than the lives of black children. You know, and that's, so when we look at some of the stuff that's happening in schools, we see that. It's either performative liberal white people, or biased white people, or completely ignorant and obtuse white people managing the lives of an education of school children. And it's not just the teachers and the principals, but it's also the superintendents and the trustees. Right? I'm here. We're going to try to do this every Friday. If you want to be on the show, let me know. Next week, I'm going to try to get Fatima, surprise you, on the show, or Vivian on the show, or Melissa on the show, or Gaston on the show. And eventually, we're going to put one of the accomplices, because we don't use the word allies here. Allies is the word, look, that's some sort of World War II white people get together and decide who they're going to kill and name and stuff like that thing. What we want is accomplices, because half the time we're in jail for stuff we shouldn't do. We want someone that's going to sit in a jail cell and eat a cheese sandwich and sleep on a cold floor with us. That's what we want, is accomplices. So we're getting an accomplice on here, maybe like Alice Ritchie or Rachel Bass or Allie Garrison or Eric DaCosta, somebody who's done some work, right? Who we see can work with black leadership, follow black leadership, and respect us. Maybe Julie Starr or Darby McBride will get them out here. Right? I'd also like to get William Cobbs on here too, one of the elders in the black community who's been through it all. We're going to try to get Brian Poirier on here, who's a retired a brother who's living in Panama, who's a retired Marine veteran who really knows his stuff. So we got a lot of exciting stuff planned. I'm going to move us from here into probably a studio next week so we can ramp up our production value. Right, and answer your questions more in a roundabout fashion. So PM me, let me know what you want to hear, what you want to talk about. If I like it, if the brotherhood likes it, if the sisterhood likes it, if we like it, then we're down with it, all right? Peace out. Happy International Women's Day. Fatima, I hope you're feeling better. Melissa, I hope you're feeling better. Vivian, you're a rock star. And I love you folks. Ian Bailey Harris out. Take care.